You got a jump check?
It's not there. Not yet, another week.
Thank you all. To follow on Lee's sentiments, it's very kind of you to come out on a Thursday night to hear a couple of folks open up and chatter about what they hope and expect. Tip O'Neill said all politics is local, and the basis for that was getting turned down by his neighbor because he didn't add his neighbor. Reminded Tip that he had not asked her for a vote. And that came home to roost the other night, loud and clear for me, maybe for you, at town meeting. As you know, the Town Manager Act and its revisions, proposed revisions, were very contentious for a group of citizens. And the citizenry came together, cast its vote, and made it very clear that it was time to remove question marks from the act itself, and as a result, make very clear what the role is of your elected officials. To me, that was the most critical part. The man behind the camera there, in my opinion, may have turned any swaying votes with the clarity and the cogent argument that he put forward. This is an important thing because your selectmen are supposed to be elevated above the daily nuts and bolts of running the town, and instead define the town's objectives, define the principles on which it's going to operate, and then oversee the progress of that. And that's the very basis of good government. The processes are predictable and understandable by everybody. There's transparency all around, and most of all, your elected officials become accountable. That's really what the role of selectmen is, and you act as a board. The most difficult thing to do, however, is that you got 5 people and one of them is turning over every year, or potentially turning over every year. The most difficult part of that process, from my observation, because you know I haven't lived it, and I understand from our host that I'm going to regret the first 3 years of it, is forming the relationships with the individual selectmen such that you can develop alliances to make progress. Lee brought home a very good point. We're a town of boundless possibilities but limited resources. We aren't limited by Proposition 2.5, that's a farce. We're limited by our tax base, which is entirely residential. If we want to keep the fabric of the town that treasures people like you, it treasures people like John Steinmetz and his young family that was here earlier, and everybody in this room, then we will have to make very difficult choices in the future. But they aren't all that difficult. I want you to give some thought to something. The town's population hasn't budged in the last 20 years. In the last 10 years, our operating budget has increased by 52%. The school population hasn't changed. But we're getting the same services and paying 52% more for them. Now, that's not for nothing, but real wages in the United States have gone up 0.29% per year over that same period. Okay, inflation is at 2.5%, so something's not matching up here. And Lee hit it on the head. We're going to have to learn to do more with less, and it's not an impossible task. Every single entity in this country has had to face the same challenge. And I'm not talking about private sector companies. I'm actually talking about things like nonprofits. We learn to do more with more information, and as a result, each of our workers become absolutely more productive. If we want to maintain the service level we have, we've got to be willing to entertain new ideas and new ways, potentially new ways to deliver those. At the same time, you need elected officials who are willing to stand up and say, you know what, maybe status quo doesn't work as well anymore. You just saw a board do that with regard to the Town Manager Act and those proposals. And you don't think there was some political capital expended there? It took a lot of courage to stand forward and in the face of very loud opposition week after week after week at selectmen's meetings, to clarify what it was that was being proposed, bring it forward to the town, and allow the town to vote on it. That is, to me, that's my ideal of how the Board of Selectmen should operate, how I'd like to operate on your behalf. And I just sum it up by saying, just keep that in mind. Good government. It's predictable, its processes are predictable because the process outlasts all the people that hold that spot. It's transparent and it's accountable. And that's it. Thanks.